GPS J. and I'm here with Kevin Mentz. And one of the things I realized that I am definitely not one of those super professional interviewers, because I just realized I don't actually have the proper pronunciation for the company. And I was going to do one of those things where I was going to sit there for a long time trying to get the proper pronunciation, but I want to do this on air, on recording, because I need to get this correct. So I'm going to ask you on the recording instead of doing it before. Normally that's what I would do. So could you just tell me, so I could learn and everyone can see this, how exactly do I pronounce the name so that I could learn it? And I know a lot of people that are watching this don't know how to pronounce it either. So, tell me, how do I pronounce the name correctly?
It's Daedalic Entertainment.
Daedalic. Okay. See, because I would probably go with the A too much, and I think that's where I would mess up.
Daedalic or something?
Yeah, like that. And maybe that's an American thing, because just for people to know, I'm in Miami, and we're talking to Kevin out there in Hamburg, Germany. So it's a 6-hour difference.
It's not only Americans who say it differently. We have some people who are here in Germany as well who say things like Daedalic, which is a bit of Eastern European style. And Daedalic is very popular. A lot of people say Daedalic, but basically whatever you're fine with, just say it. People, I think I still recognize the name, and you can say it as you want, but we here call it Daedalic, second A.
Now, did the name? See, that's the thing. Now, if you don't know the language, you're not sure if it's a proper name or did it come from something. So, that's the thing. Especially with a show like this where we're talking to a lot of different people, and that's what we love about Gamer Profiles, where we talk to a lot of different people in the gaming industry from all over the world, and that's what's awesome. You meet a lot of different people from a lot of different places. So the name. Does it have a specific meaning? Like, what is the meaning behind the name?
Actually, it's a mix between the word Daedalus. I don't know if you're familiar with Greek mythology. He was the guy who built the wings of Icarus, and he built the labyrinth where the Minotaur was living inside. So basically, the thing behind Daedalus was that when the company was founded, it was said that Daedalus was probably the first game designer. He made the first flight simulator with the wings of Icarus, and he built the first labyrinth maze level, which was the labyrinth of Minos. And so it's not Daedalus alone, but because we're a technical company, we're working with software development, so it's Daedalus plus technical things, so it's Daedalic. So that's where the name comes from.
Hey, now that's cool. See, you got Greek mythology, you got the level building, so it really goes with a bunch of things all together. So it really does fit in with gaming. That's awesome. As for yourself, what was your gaming background like growing up? What kind of games did you like?
And when I was very, very young, my brother had a C64. And I started playing on that, but I was so young I hardly remember any games. I think the only game I still remember was called Jet Set Willy. I don't know if you ever heard of Jet Set Willy. It's very, very old school, very hard. But then when I grew older, I was a lot into, as you can imagine, to point-and-click adventure games, graphic adventure games, like the Sierra Online games and the LucasArts games. And at the same time, I played a lot of Nintendo NES games, and I think interestingly, one of my favorite NES games was also about Greek mythology. It was called the Battle of Olympus.
Oh, nice.
Hardly anyone knows that game, in that it's a Zelda-style action-adventure game where you play Orpheus, who travels through all of ancient mythical Greece in order to save his dead wife from the underworld. And what I always liked about those games was the kind of sense of the world you're in. It was always about being in very atmospheric, very interesting places. So most of the games I played, I think I loved, the games I liked the most were those who had very interesting settings. And where it was just nice to be in these worlds. It wasn't so much about the gameplay or well, the story also played a part in it, but mostly it was about the traveling to different worlds, and I like this Greek mythology thing, especially Battle of Olympus.
What about as far as the Sierra games? Because I mean, I love those games: Space Quest, King's Quest, Police Quest. I mean, was there one of those series overall that you liked the most?
I think I like the King's Quest series, especially especially I liked King's Quest 6, which was just blew away my mind. It was I think still it is, even the later games didn't make it that far as King's Quest 6. And but the series, the all in all the series I like the most was the Quest for Glory series.
Ah, yes.
Have you ever played those? They were
Yeah,
mixed between adventure games and role-playing elements, and they were fantastic.
I think that's where a lot of people really started to get into that series, is where you started to get into the RPG element, because you also had that where it was coming out on the consoles too. So when people saw that crossover, people were like, oh, I could play this on the computer, but then you also had some of those coming out in Nintendo. So people had both sides where you could play those RPG games. But I mean, you kind of had that divide too. Did you ever feel that when you were playing, since you played both the Commodore 64? Because you even started to see that people, especially with the Commodore 64, where you had those games. Did you ever feel like torn between the two, or was it like, hey, I have two systems where I could play these awesome games, so it was all good?
It was all good, but as I like them both. I like my video games. And I like my PC games. And I played them multiple times. The ones I like the most, I finished. I don't know, numerous times. And but when I grew up, unfortunately, neither of those. I think when I was about 10, 12ish or something, I didn't get the next console generation, and my PC was getting older and older. So at one point, I didn't play any games anymore until one day a friend of mine moved to Canada and he had to get rid of his PlayStation. So he gave me his PlayStation 1, and from then on I was all in video games. I didn't really play PC games that much anymore. It was just Silent Hill, Metal Gear Solid, all those great PlayStation 1 games. And it took a few years until I came back to PC. So in the beginning there was both, then it was mostly video games, and now I'm playing both again.
So what was it that made you just say, "Hey, I wanted to make that leap to work, in games"? Because I think that maybe at some point, if you really play a lot of games and you get into it, you think to yourself, "Wow, it'd be cool to work in games." But I mean, I think it takes something to actually make that next step. So what was it for you?
I think I wanted to make games. It's a cliche to say that, but I always wanted to make games. When I played my first graphic adventure Sierra games, I always copied the graphics onto pieces of paper, and I made my own little graphics for my own little games. So when I was a kid, I always wanted to become a background artist for old school graphic adventure games. And so after a while, I started to I got more and more interested in writing and telling stories, and that was the time when I didn't play a lot of games anymore. So I was more interested in film and books, and I always knew I wanted to do something creative where I could tell stories in different kind of mediums and different kind of genres. And when I think I was about 20 or something, I discovered the RPG Maker 2000. I don't know if you're familiar with the RPG
I've
Maker.
heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I started fooling around with that for a bit. Um, and yeah, I made my first games. And while working on my first RPG Maker game, I learned how to use graphic programs. I learned more about writing for games. I did my first animation, pixel animation, and everything. So basically, I learned about all the aspects of game productions on a very small scale. And I just enjoyed it. It became a passion of mine to just do this. And then one day I realized that Daedalic was looking for interns. And I was a student. I studied media and literature, and I still needed an internship for my university degree. So I went to Daedalic, and then I started making games there professionally, and I'm still here after 5 years.
So, I mean, what was it like? Because I think that's what happens. A lot of people that may have that dream and they're actually took that next step and they say to themselves, hey, I'm going to actually pursue this. And it's not just going to be a hobby. I'm not going to quit. And they pursue that internship. Can you tell us about, that those first, couple of steps, maybe the first couple of weeks, first couple of months? What does one expect? I mean, it's going to be different depending on whether they're an artist, a programmer, or something like that. But can you give us maybe an idea of, being an internship, especially, with you at Daedalic?
When I started, I was very lucky. I was the right person at the right time in the right place. So when I started to Daedalic, there was a project coming up that was very small and well, small enough so that I could get into that very, very quickly. And I wasn't overwhelmed by huge major productions. I was supposed to help them there. And I got the opportunity to write text and to do a bit of game design here. So I got the opportunity to continue what I had already learned in my free time, which I think is very important. It's very, very important if you want to get into game development professionally. Have your own projects. It's easier than ever to start your own game projects with all the tools and engines you can get online. And so at first it was a bit strange to do my hobby professionally. It felt kind of surreal to actually do this and have people see your work and giving you feedback and everything. So yeah, I was very lucky that I wasn't thrown into the whole thing just from one moment to the next that I could gradually grow into. But I build up on the experience I had before. So I think I think the most important thing, if you want to get into development, try during your free time, figure out what you want to do, what you're good at, and what you can deliver, and then how you can build on that. And when you start working professionally, um, you already feel more comfortable there. But in the end, I think you won't get a job if you don't have if you don't have experience beforehand. So it's always a good idea to get experience.
Now, one of the cool things that we were talking about right before the show was I was watching the video on your YouTube page where it showed when the 50,000 YouTube, not YouTube, but Facebook fans, and you were showing the studios and the offices, and it was pretty cool. What is it like, just the everyday work environment? I mean, it looks fun, and you know, it's kind of cool to get kind of like that behind the curtain, behind the scenes look at a different company. Of course, every office is business, so it's a professional environment. But it's also a game studio. You're gonna have a lot of people that are there that are gamers. So, what is like a day in the life at the Daedalic?
Basically, it's work like everywhere else. I think I get up, I come here at 9. I start working, and then I work for 8 hours. And sometimes you have to stay a bit longer to get things done on time. But the atmosphere here is great. A lot of my colleagues are my friends, so and we share a lot. As you said, we're all gamers, or we're all interested in comic books or the same or similar movies, and we all work together on a project that we believe in that will be interesting. So that's the thing. If you work in a company where you can mix your own passions for your passion for games, for example, with what you do, you end up with a lot of people who have similar passions and ambitions. So it's it's uh, it's a very very how do you say it's a very fertile ground in a way to work because you're connected to your colleagues on a lot of different levels, and I think that is the great thing if you are working as a developer.
One of the things that I'm always curious about, like I was talking to another developer who was out in Hong Kong, and I always curious about perhaps the difference in, gamers, or maybe like if you go to an arcade or you go to a store that sells games and maybe you interact with gamers. And I'm sure that you guys have been out to maybe conventions and you meet different people from around the world. Have you been able to maybe see a difference in gamers from, let's say, maybe the States or from the UK, difference from maybe gamers in Germany, like how their play styles or maybe how they would react to different games, or maybe even your games? Like, would you say like maybe point and click adventures, maybe gamers in Germany are more into that game than maybe gamers are in America? Like, would you say overall, like the different types of gamers in Germany to maybe the States or the UK or something like that, or Asia?
Yeah, actually, I think point-and-click adventure games in Germany are very big, bigger than in the US, for example. But I think the reason for that is mostly because in Germany, or mostly in Europe, we didn't have this kind of arcade hall history that you have in the US. I think people in the US are more used to video games in the sense of more action-oriented and less PC games, where PC games we have like a lot of point-and-click adventure games, for example. So the PC is still a thing here in Germany, and a lot of people grew up in the 80s and 90s with PC games. So they grew up with point-and-click adventure games, and they remember how much they like those games. So there's still this nostalgia that the nostalgia is bigger towards point-and-click adventure games here in Germany than probably in the US. I think that may be one of the biggest differences. But it is changing. I think there is video games like console games. By now they're big everywhere. So. And because of the whole indie gaming scene, PC games are getting more and more attractive and more interesting around the world. So it's hard to draw the line now, but in the 80s and 90s it was a bit different.
Yeah, well, and it's cool because another reason why I wanted to talk to you guys, especially right now, is that I saw on Steam that you guys have a lot of games on special, and you guys had a lot of great games. Especially, I think that, like you said, with indie gamers, even though you guys are, I guess wouldn't be called an indie company, but you have the type of games that a lot of indie players like. Those games that you can really get into. It's not just, the titles that a lot of people nowadays would just say are the games that you just play once through and then throw away. It's like this type of game that you really can get into and play over and over again, which a lot of people are clamoring for. Overall, especially with all the titles that's been released since you guys started, is there a title that you like more than the other ones? Like, what would be your favorite out of the titles that they have?
Well, that's an unfair question because my answer would
I know,
be unfair.
that's why I asked it.
Basically, I like the games I worked on myself the best. And that's the unfair answer to that question.
Okay, how about out of the ones that you worked on, which one do you like the best?
I like the best Memoria.
In Aventuria, the greatest heroes of our time fight against the demon master Borbard.
Death will now rain down on the troops.
Fearlessly, the brave Princess Saja also joins the battle.
1,000 years from now, people will tell tales of my deeds and whisper my name in awe.
Either you'll achieve the impossible, or you'll descend into the deepest madness.
But lost in the war and forgotten by time, the destiny of the princess remains unsettled. 5 centuries later, the birdcatcher Garon strives to disclose the secrets surrounding the young woman.
Can a single riddle really be that important?
Only if he succeeds to solve the enigma, an old spell can be broken, and the love of his life will be freed of her curse.
And next, we'll make you a fairy again.
Little does he know that the present will soon transform into a dark shadow of times past.
The future of this world is in our hands.
However it may end, it will change Aventuria forever.
Memoria.
This game that was released last year, and it's a point-and-click adventure game, and it's set in a very traditional fantasy setting. It's a mix between low and high fantasy. It's about two storylines. One is about a princess who wants to go to war to become the greatest heroine of all time. And the other storyline takes place 500 years in the future, further away. And there you play another character who knows that this princess was utterly forgotten. No one knows about her, so she probably must have failed. And in the one story, you play her story. In the past, you play her story trying to get to this war and become a hero. And the other story is more like a crime story. You have to figure out what actually happened back there. So it's very, very different stories and a very interesting dynamic. And it was a lot to figure out how those two stories could connect. And I'm very proud with the result. For a lot of people, for a lot of players, it was like a page-turning mystery story where they never really knew what was going on up until the very end, and they just always had to figure out, had to know what was going on. So it's a very I'm very proud that I achieved this level of excitement. And yeah, so that's the game I worked on that I'm most proud of.
What was the first one you worked at at Daedalic?
The first game I worked on, the very, very first game I worked on was a hidden object game. So I'm not sure if you still can get it online, but probably yes. It was called The Tudors. It was a game tie-in to the TV series The Tudors. And
okay.
Yeah, but the first adventure game I worked on was called A New Beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
In 2010.
Yeah, it was 2010, right?
Okay.
And yeah, there are other games I really like that I didn't work on, which was The Night of the Rabbit.
What if magic truly did exist? If connections existed between myriads of worlds, what if there were beings who could wander between those worlds? What if you could be their apprentice?
Those eyes that have seen countless worlds. Some say he knows no mercy.
Permit me to introduce myself. I am the Marquis de Hoto.
Oh, but you're...
Arictogulus cuniculus sapiens, yes indeed. This world will be your school, and its inhabitants will teach you many things. And then, once your training is complete, you will see the world with the eyes of a tree walker.
But be on your guard. A sinister secret, long forgotten, will soon cast its shadow over the portal worlds.
Soon this world will be healed.
No more worries about money.
About land. About luck. About health.
With the first promise the Cold One breaks, an abyss will open.
And that, honorable audience, is magic!
the spell. You alone can stop him.
Was made by a good friend of mine, Matt Kemke, and it's a kind of fairy tale with a slightly darkish twist where you play a young boy who gets to be he is taught by a giant walking talking rabbit in a coat how to become a magician, and it has this kind of fairy tale style feeling, and you're in this forest with all those talking animals. It's a very charming little game with this small darkish undertones, which is very nice. It has a great atmosphere as well. I really like that game. And of course, you're probably familiar with the Deponia games. Mm-hmm. They're a comedy sci-fi series of 3 games, a trilogy. And they're a bit like Futurama, slightly Futurama-esque, about a guy who lives on a junkyard planet. And he wants to get away from that planet at all costs. And there's just more and more chaos going on throughout the game. So it's a lot of slapstick, a lot of wordplay, and a lot of fun. So I think those are the biggest titles and the most interesting titles we developed so far. Oh, and I forgot one more, because we didn't only do point-and-click adventure games, but I think what we're very proud of is that we also we started doing strategy role-playing games, like Blackguards, and we're currently working on the sequel. Very well received, and it's just astonishing how it has a very small team and what they actually managed to pull off in that game. So yeah, actually there's a lot of reasons why it's nice to work at Daedalic. Very interesting projects here.
Yeah, and I see that the part 2 is set for 2015, the Dark Eye for Blackguards 2, and that should be cool when that comes out too. And the big. I keep receiving a lot of news about Randal's Monday. Can you tell us a little about that?
Space. The final frontier. These are the...
Oh my God! The amazing Matt using his terrible mutant powers in front of everybody.
These are the adventures of Randal Hicks. Life always has some nice surprises up its sleeve. Tragic losses, new allies, betrayals. Don't we all sometimes desire to go back and erase some of the mistakes we've made? But what if the guy who's been given that opportunity is a sociopathic, kleptomaniac, good-for-nothing moron?
Wow! Did you kill him?
Yes, just save it, all right? I'm deaf. I wish you a good day, but I'm sure you have already realized that there's nothing good about it.
He can't get through one single day, and it's not even Groundhog Day.
Wait, what? Are you telling me today's Monday? It's not a holiday. It's just a Monday. Monday.
You're cursed!
May the Force be with him.
I'm not surprised you opened an interdimensional breach that's going to destroy the whole universe with that attitude.
Yeah, that was a good one, huh?
Tell me, Randal Hicks, what is the awesomest sci-fi saga ever?
Did you just say awesomest?
Randal's Monday.
I can't believe it. Is that you, Morty? So are you going to start paying for your half of the rent someday? Damn, that bastard has an answer for everything.
And yeah, Randal's Money, we're publishing Randal's Money. It's made by a developer in Spain. And it's a very geeky adventure game where you play this guy called Randal who he messes up in the beginning. He just his best friend wants to make what's the word? If you want to marry someone and you give them a ring and ask them a proposal.
Oh, proposal, yeah.
Yeah, his best friend makes a proposal to his girlfriend, and because of Randal, everything goes wrong, and then it's just a very bizarre game. He gets caught in a time loop, like in Groundhog Day, that he has to relive this day over and over again and try to get things right, but it just gets worse and worse and worse. So it's a very crazy, very funny adventure game from the guys in Spain. Very, very cool people.
Awesome. So I mean, so it's cool. I mean, working on games as well as publishing them. I mean, overall, I guess maybe at first, you know, when you first work on something and it gets released and you see, you know, it get out there, you know, you might have had jitters. Do you still get that feeling when something, you know, gets released to the public, or like when you go to a convention? Like, you know, how is that feeling when you're out there? Or like, do you go to conventions and like, you know, sit around the booth or see the reaction of fans? Do you get out there and do that?
Yes, whenever I can. And yes, it's always I'm always nervous when that happens, because you never know how people will react to your ideas. So this is very important to just see how people like it, get feedback early on, and even when you think everything is fine, you got enough feedback, and everyone you asked said it's a great game, you're still incredibly nervous when it gets released, because you never know how people are going to react ultimately to your game. So it stays exciting. I think I cannot imagine I will ever get jaded and just sit back and say, oh, another game released, let's start the next one. I don't care what people say. That would be horrible if I would start to think like that. It's always that's the thing you're working for. That's why you make games. You want people to enjoy that and enjoy your games and have a good time. And up to the very moment until you realize that if it really worked or not, you are nervous, because if you fail to deliver that, you failed. The project failed. So it's always exciting and always good to get to see the people's faces when they finally liked it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, hey, you know, it's true, and that's the great kind of attitude to have, because, you know, I think that there's a lot of people out there who still will just, you know, put anything together, you know, just for the act of trying to make a buck, and, you know, and that's one of the reasons why we want to talk to people and get, you know, just their overall feeling about, you know, gaming, because I think that is an idea of like what they put into their work. It's just like anything else. You get the idea behind the artist. You know, like some people might argue about if games are art or not. I think that they are, especially if you know the heart behind the artist. And someone that cares about game is going to care about their work. And yes, you're part of a huge team, but still, you know, every person that cares about what they're doing, you're going to see it in their work. So hearing that someone grew up about caring about gaming and that they're working for a group of people that care about gaming and they put out products that you know is good and you see a legacy of work that's good, you know that you're in good hands. So I want to, you know, thank you for talking with us today and teaching me how to say Daedalic, right?
Daedalic, yes.
Yeah,
You got it.
Daedalic. So I mean, at least there's that. So at least I did that. So Kevin, thanks for coming on and talking with us today, and it's been great.
Thanks to you for giving me this opportunity. It's always nice to have this kind of different interviews. Usually I always talk about my projects, but I hardly ever talk about the games I used to play. It's wonderful to answer these kind of questions once in a while. Well, thanks.
That's what we do here, and we'll be back with another show very soon. But in the meantime, we want to thank all you guys for checking out our show. And remember our mantra, never stop gaming. We'll be back soon.
Never stop gaming.